Tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this.
Hey, what's going on, folks? Is Eric Adams morphing into Donald Trump?
I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month.
It's amazing that Mr. Sanctuary City has turned into illegal immigrants are ruining New York City so fast. We'll watch the full clip, analyze it, and then I want to address a few things and showcase for those who care why the media is completely false to smear me for speaking the truth. God bless you. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Dream Rare Podcast. I want to address something at the end, but first, I want to talk about a news story that's pretty wild. Eric Adams, who used to support sanctuary cities, is basically having a meltdown, going just as far as Trump, suggesting that illegal immigrants are ruining his city, and it sounds like he's panicking. He doesn't know what to do, or he can't figure it out, and it's pretty fascinating. Let's watch the full clip. This is Democrat Mayor Eric Adams saying stuff that they said was far right or hateful or whatever they were saying years ago. Now they've pretty much adapted the same rhetoric. Let's listen.
Support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We had a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you asked me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. I'm telling you now with 110,000. The city we knew we're about to lose. And we're all in this together. All of us. Staten Island is saying, send them out to Manhattan. Manhattan is saying, send them out to Queens. Queens is saying, send them out to Brooklyn. No. It's not the game we can play. Open the floor up.
Well, luckily I have my printer right here. I just printed this out during it. Is this Eric Adams? We should protect our immigrants, period. Yes, New York City will remain a sanctuary city under an Adams administration. It's less than 2 years ago. So as you know, I'm glad he's saying this now. I'm grateful that he's come around. It seems like he is, I'm not going to say a legitimate leader because I don't think that, but it seems like now that it's his problem, he does actually care about it and he's freaking out. And I respect him more than most Democrats who won't talk about it. But it's hard to feel bad for a guy that pretty much begged for illegal immigrants. We'll be a sanctuary city. We'll take them all, you mean Republicans. And then as soon as he gets them all, it's like, it's really, how do you think Yuma, Arizona has felt for decades? How do you think border towns and cities in Texas have felt? If it's that bad in New York, could you imagine Yuma, Arizona? Could you imagine border towns in Texas. Can you imagine the whole country is dealing with it? So it's hard to feel bad for this guy. I mean, I don't. But at the same time, I am grateful and appreciative that he's at least starting to push this narrative in the Democratic Party, because it shouldn't be a Republican issue. It shouldn't be like, oh, Republicans want to, clear the border and make immigration legal, and Democrats want to open. And, you got people like Beto O'Rourke, that are like breaking, he's celebrating the fact that a federal judge is removing Abbott's buoy barrier from the Rio Grande. So for those who don't know, the border is not closed. Trump didn't finish the wall. I'm not saying it's all his fault. Maybe he couldn't. The government's this corrupt or whatever, the courts. But, Abbott finally tried to do his job and was like, hey, let's try to secure the parts of the river or the Rio Grande that are not, we can't really build a wall there. So we got to put buoys or something. And the federal government or the federal courts are taking it down, and Beto O'Rourke is celebrating. It's like we can't even defend our border. It's so crazy. And this is like most of the Democratic Party now is they're like Beto O'Rourke, and they just, they act like it's so bad to try to stop people from crossing a deadly river and put up buoys so people are deterred from coming. It's like, listen, we got how many millions of homeless people in California, Hawaii, all over the world. Now New York City doesn't know what to do. Eric Adams is panicking all over the place. I mean, it's not a hateful thing. And, I'm going to get into it with my second story. Anytime you tell the truth about any issue, they call you hateful. They say you're racist or sexist or xenophobic or anti-Semitic or a conspiracy theorist or a climate change denier or not. There was mainstream media in 2020. They posted articles and they said the conspiracy theorists think that there's going to be mandatory COVID vaccines. That's a conspiracy theory that we would ever try to mandate COVID-19 vaccines. That's a conspiracy theory. You're crazy. And then once the mandates came out 2 years later, they said, you're a conspiracy theorist if you don't want to get the mandated vaccine. Wait, I thought you just called us conspiracy theorists for knowing mandatory vaccines were on their way, but now the roles reversed. They do this all the time. They just smear anyone that's ahead of the curve. And regardless of what you think about Trump did not start the idea of a border. Democrats used to talk about it. Chuck Schumer used to talk about it. They never really did that much, but they did some. And then Trump came around and made that a big policy because a lot of people cared, and they called him a racist, and they said he hates Mexicans and Latinos, and they've been pushing this narrative for 3 years. And the truth is, that was something that Trump was right about, ahead of the curve or ahead of most Democrats, or somehow politicized it to make them pretend like they didn't want it. And now, the chickens are coming home to roost, as possibly some would say. Possibly they'd say it another way. He wanted this. I mean, he wanted to be a sanctuary city. He virtue signaled. And I hate to say it because I don't think that this is the solution. The solution would be an actual immigration policy. But if the federal courts will not allow you to secure your border, if the Democrats are letting people come in by the millions, as Eric Adams said, from Russia, from China, from Mexico, from Guatemala, from Haiti, from Africa, people are coming in from all over. I mean, this is a national security issue when you got people from 15 countries, including one you're in economic and battle with, coming across the border, and we can't secure it. And the Democrats keep saying, oh, it's open borders, open borders, open borders. And then you start sending people. You're like, I can't send them back because they'll sue us. I can't build the wall because the courts won't let us. Let's just send them to New York City. I mean, it's not my first choice, but they don't have a choice. So you have to say, with this type of stuff, that was a genius chess move from DeSantis. I think he started it, sending them to Martha's Vineyard. It's not ideal, but it's something. And then Governor Abbott followed. This is a chess move. I got it. Just like I said, Trump was right about the border wall. I appreciate Governor DeSantis for being one of the first ones. I don't know if he was the first one, but he might have been, sending them like, hey, I don't want, go, you take them. And then it's like, hot potato, get them out of here. They want to go to Queens. They want to go to Brooklyn. They're all over the place. We can't sustain it. Our budget is being destroyed. Of course. What do you think's been happening to our country? And, before I get to the next story, I just want to really talk about this a little more. It's a damn shame what's going on in this country. I don't want to cry about it too much. I don't want to just stand on my high horse, but so many simple policies. We just fight over candidates. We fight over left and right. We fight over DeSantis versus Trump. The left hates this. They'll call you that. The ADL says Elon Musk is anti-Semitic, and nobody has a conversation. Like, can we secure our border? Can we not let our whole country implode? They'll act like, and I don't really care. I understand how the media works, but they'll act like someone who had a tweet that was mean or a tweet that was accurate that they just don't want to face, that's somehow worse than people who mandated vaccines. That's somehow worse than schools that forced a young boy to get a vaccine to play sports. He did it and then got myocarditis. They always paint the narrative like they're so great and the government's so great and the media's so great and they've never done anything wrong. And it's like, listen, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has flaws, but you're trying to paint it as if someone says something on a podcast that you don't want to have a discussion about, and that's the worst thing you've ever seen. But when big pharma comes together with both sides of government, prints trillions of dollars, implodes our economy, locks people in the house, force masks workers in 100-degree heat, force mask kids to the point where they're having speech problems because they can't even see, a young boy gets myocarditis. Oh, but let's not write articles about that, right? In left-wing and right-wing news. Let's write articles about anomaly and let's cry about foreign policy. It's so disgusting what's going on. And I have to say that this ticking time bomb policy of just allowing tens of millions of people to come across the border, it's not sustainable. I mean, how long can you possibly lie about it? How long can Democrats push it off? I want to wrap it up by saying I don't feel bad for a guy that said he was a sanctuary city, yet now is crying that he is a sanctuary city and he's getting what he asked for because he never thought it would get to this point. But at the same time, you do have to say, in a party filled with Democrats who won't say that, I'm glad that Eric Adams is saying that. I don't vote in New York City. It's not, I'd vote for a Republican over him. I would have voted for Giuliani's son or pretty much anyone. But at the same point, I do think that it seems like he cares more than most Democrat mayors, because most Democrat mayors would just pathologically lie about it, where it feels like he created this massive problem for himself, inherited a problem that they already had, was wrong about it, and now is like, wait, I got to talk about it, because it seems like he actually does kind of care, and he knows that his city's screwed if they don't fix it. Like, his budget's screwed, everything's screwed, public welfare screwed, the crime rate has gone up, I believe, and it's just not safe anymore. There's like homeless people out everywhere. He knows he's screwed, and I respect him. And I like the fact that he's admitting he's screwed rather than just saying like, oh, it's not a problem. It's like, no, it is a problem. New York City is one of the best cities in the world when it's at its peak, and it's a dumpy city when it's not at its peak. So as Americans, let's build up New York City again, make it great, make it cleaner, make it a little safer. It's never going to be perfect, but it's a shell of itself. And I at least respect the fact that he's admitting that. That's the first step. If the Democratic Party could not be so insane when it came to certain policies, this country would be a better place. And, I'm going to get into certain things. And this is the last time I'm probably going to address it, because the media attacks, because of the Vivek interview I did, they're trying to basically delegitimize me and make people think I'm crazy because I'm not controlled and I speak my mind and I say things that I believe, and I don't work for a big corporation like that. But in general, they've done it to everybody. It shouldn't be a shocker that they've done it to me. I don't feel like I'm a victim. In fact, one of the things that weirdly made me feel better about my job is because I'm not asking for all the attention. I never really wanted it. I just wanted to do a job that I didn't see people doing. But I always thought my job was like edgy. And then in 2020, they locked everyone in the house. If you work for a dentist's office, you were locked in the house. If you were a doctor, you got to work, but you had to, change your hours possibly or do it differently. If you had like a normal, safe job, all of a sudden it's not safe anymore. So 2020 really showed how far the regime will go and how far this country and the world will go. It's like even safe isn't safe anymore. So, at the end of the day, it's like you could have the most basic, like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to talk about anything. I won't get into politics. And they could still lock you in your house for 4 months and tell your kid, he can't play sports as a 17-year-old unless he gets a COVID-19 vaccine. And if your kid gets myocarditis from it, they don't give a crap about it. So, I'm not acting like I'm a victim. And I'm not saying we're the victim, but this country is like a shell of what it once was. And even the most safe position to take isn't safe anymore. If the government, the pharmaceutical industries, and the schools can lock you in your house and tell you that if you go to a beach that you're committing a crime. So 2020 really snapped me out of it. I was like, dang, nothing is safe anymore. Nothing is fair. It's a crazy, crazy world. And that's just what it is. But I want to say, you've seen the attacks of them calling Trump racist a million times for just having a border policy. You watch what they say when it comes to DeSantis and other Republicans that say, hey, I don't know if a 3-year-old should cut their genitals off. That seems kind of crazy, or their breasts. And then they go, oh, what do you hate gay people? Oh, what do you hate LGBTQ plus? And they're doing the same thing to me now under the guise of anti-Semitism. If you take a stand against anything in that category, they just call you an anti-Semite. And they call you anti-LGBTQ plus, even if you don't care what people do in their privacy. You just don't want kids to be, on pharmaceutical pills trying to change their gender before they're 18 years old, the same way you wouldn't want a 4-year-old to get a tattoo of Barney on his face just because he liked Barney. It's a simple policy. It's a simple idea. It's a conversation that you could have, whether you agree or disagree. But these are the things that they've done for years. And it's a fascinating time, before we move on, that Eric Adams, that probably would once consider it a racist policy to want to deal with illegal immigration, he's now crying like he's Donald Trump Jr., freaking out. You got people, the ADL is now getting sued by, Elon Musk, the richest guy in the world, because they tried to say that X was an anti-Semitic platform. X is not an anti-Semitic platform. It's just that Elon Musk is not censoring as much stuff as other social media. And because he's not censoring other stuff as social media, they're trying to find the craziest and worst things they can and pin it on the entire platform, when the reality is, on all social media, there's crazy stuff and crazy people. And at the end of the day, I think Elon's doing a better job managing it than most other social media people, but this is the pressure they put on. And, they've been putting it on a lot of people for a lot of years, and they try to just like pin you in a corner. It's like, if you don't put the rainbow flag, you're anti-gay. If you don't do what we say, you're anti-Semitic. If you don't allow Black Lives Matter to come to your neighborhood and push progressive policies, you're a racist. If you want your wife to like not, be doing a million things and just raising the kids, if that's your prerogative, then you're a sexist. If you believe in border security, you're a xenophobe. And the more that they say these words, the less that anybody is respecting and believing them. And that's what's happening. And I think it's an interesting time that they're choosing to, smear me under that guise, because they're doing it at a time where the main story in the country right now is everybody laughing at the overuse and exaggeration of anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic slander, because Elon Musk is being called those things because he's standing up to the Anti-Defamation League, which is something that, I don't know how many people have ever done to this extent. Like, Elon's rich, he's powerful, he owns a social media company, and he's saying, this organization tried to cut off my advertisers and defame me to the point where they were trying to ruin my business. So it's a very relevant story right now. So I just want to say a few things, and I want to keep this video short. I want to play, hopefully I'll be able to without my video freezing, but I want to play a few clips just to show people where I'm coming from based on what I said, because I don't want to talk about this all the time, because I feel like the more you bring attention to it, the more that the media will like press on it. And I don't feel like that. At the same time, I do, for my audience, for history, for historical record, I want people to see the full context of what I'm saying and what I mean, because I've never been hateful. I've never blamed all people. I've never hated a country and said that you can't do this or that. But the double standards are just so obvious, where I'm going to show you right now, certain people think that if someone says something of a certain ethnicity, that's what it is. And if you're not of that ethnicity, you're not allowed to have an opinion about it. They will decide what's hate speech. They will decide. And if you disagree with this individual, then all of a sudden you must be anti-Semitic. It's ridiculous. And I know that Michael Rappaport does not speak for all people, but here is this guy, God bless him. Here's him saying what he thinks about people talking about the Elon Musk and the ADL thing. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people are saying that Elon is not being anti-Semitic and Twitter is not being anti-Semitic. And this is his response. Take a look.
Scumbums. You scumbums on X, Twitter X. Anti-Semitism is trending again. I love a bunch of anti-Semitic people, anti-Jews, debating on what Jewish people should deem anti-Jewish. Keep the Jews' names out your fucking mouth. If we think it's anti-Jewish, it's anti-Jewish. All right, c***er? All right, you creepy c***ers? You Alex Jones worshippers? Alex Jones was right. Right? Alex Jones was right about everything except Sandy Hook. He wasn't right about Sandy Hook. That he was wrong about. I think we could all agree he was wrong about Sandy Hook. Get some new heroes, you fucking creeps.
So that's him literally saying, you shouldn't even have an opinion on what's anti-Semitic or not. Leave it to him and his ethnicity / religion. They will decide what it is. And if they say it, then that's what it is. Of course, everybody doesn't agree with Michael Rappaport. So I'm not trying to blame everybody, because that's, I don't think, a very popular opinion. But this is the type of stuff I deal with. If I ever said what he said, I would be written in 50 media organizations. They'd call me the most hateful person ever. They'd say he's threatening people, this or that. But he comes out and basically says, you know, I mean, I would say that he's basically hinting that if people don't think what's going on with ADL and Elon Musk is anti-Semitic, then you are an anti-Semite. They'll tell you what's hateful. And then he goes off and says racial slurs about white people that I don't even care about. I only bleeped it because I think they censor that on social media now. I mean, like, it doesn't bother me, but that's what they do. So long story short, you know, this is kind of the gist of what I've been dealing with for a while and with what I'm dealing with now. This is a lot of people, not everyone. I'm not saying it's like a majority or anything, but certain people, certain journalists, certain individuals, etc. They think because of my ethnicity, because of my religion, if I say it's anti-Semitic, and you can't have another opinion about it. I decide what is or isn't, and you can't have another opinion. And it's like, that's insane. That's not true. That's double standards. I mean, and of course, I would never say what he said to his ethnicity because I don't think that, but it's amazing how he can just say stuff like that and it's totally fine. But if I talk about, you know, I would say percentages of ownership in certain companies, then all of a sudden I'm the most hateful person ever. Speaking of that, here's the CEO of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, saying exactly what they're now saying I'm anti-Semitic for in the media, which is saying that his ethnic group / religion has like a solid, you know, like they're doing disproportionately well in certain industries. I mean, he's saying that in this clip. I just want to show you the clip.
Do model good citizenship, right? I think in this country, the American Jews have been able to assimilate and achieve in academia, in business, in government, in the arts. I mean, we're quite successful, almost disproportionate to our numbers, if you will.
So he said we're quite successful, almost disproportionate to our numbers. Nothing wrong with that. If he says that or this, I don't really care. But if I ever said that, they'll say I'm anti-Semitic. And that's kind of like the Michael Rappaport style, where it's like, if we say it, you are that. But if we say it about ourselves, there's LA Times articles that go way further than I've ever gone that literally go down in certain organizations. I believe it was written by a Jewish journalist, but he was talking about ownership in media and in certain corporations. And he wrote it, you know, it was years ago, but it was like, when it's said in that forum, it's like, whatever. But if I say the same exact thing, even not being, I'm not jealous, I'm not hateful, I'm not asking to own anything, I don't care, I think Israel has the right to exist. Who am I to tell people who can exist or not? People say, do you think it has the right to exist? Am I God? Do I run the world? Who am I to tell Israel or Palestine what land that is? That's for you guys to decide. That's for the media to freak out about. I'm not Genghis Khan. I'm not running around the world telling whose country's whose. It's way above my pay grade. You get what I'm saying? I was born 33 years ago. It's not like I'm, you know what I'm saying, a dictator that gets to tell people what part of land is theirs. But in general, it's like they act like I'm the biggest Palestinian activist in the world every time I say what everybody says all the time. I just point it out, and they act and they write it all crazy and act like I've said it the craziest ways. Here's another one that I want to bring to people's attention because it's bipartisan oftentimes. You know, Ben Shapiro has said, and the press is now saying about me, that it's so anti-Semitic that I suggested that anybody, I've never, and for the record, I've never said everyone has dual loyalty. I've never said everyone of every race and religion has dual. I've never thought that. I don't think that. I think there's millions of people from every race and religion that have only loyalty to America. There's millions of people from other ethnicities that have loyalty to other countries. And it's all like subjective. But anyway, in general, Ben Shapiro often says, and I'm going to show the tweet, he says it's anti-Semitism to suggest anybody Jewish in America has dual loyalty, and the writing in the press anomaly suggested that about people, and they're trying to act like I said it about everyone, which I never did. I just talked about certain individuals based off of what they say. It sounds like they like multiple countries, which is fine. I just want to be able to talk about it. Here's Ben Shapiro pretty much saying that himself. He says, if you listen to this interview, he says that his loyalty to America is pretty much because of the existence of Israel. Like, he says that. I'm not listening to the interview, take it in full context of what he said, and then read the tweet he said and tell me why I get in trouble and they act like I'm crazy for noticing that this is happening and just speaking about it. I don't care. I don't care if Ben Shapiro likes Japan. I don't care if he moves to Ukraine and fights in the war. That's his prerogative. I'm just an analyst. I'm analyzing, and I talk about it calmly, peacefully, and I don't call for hate or even anger. So I'm just going to set the record straight.
Ever wonder if one day you'll have to flee the United States? I mean, I think that every Jew throughout world history who has a brain and knows history has always wondered if a country that is not a Jewish state is going to eternally provide them security guarantees and full citizenship, of course. I mean, that's I think to think that that's why the existence of the state of Israel is the single greatest guarantor of my loyalty to the United States, frankly. Right? Because Israel exists, that means the United States is going to be a more welcoming place for me, because Israel is there as a backstop in case anything should go wrong.
Why won't you make Aliyah to the state of Israel?
Because
so in that little clip, Ben Shapiro says that the existence of Israel, the existence of Israel is his guarantor to be loyal to America, excuse me. But then he tweeted years ago, American Jews, whether ethnic or religious, are loyal to America, not Israel. Any dual loyalty supposition is anti-Semitism. So even Ben Shapiro does the same thing that the media is doing to me now. He says he's basically saying like everyone of my race and religion is loyal to America, not Israel, and suggesting otherwise is anti-Semitism. It's anti-Semitic. But then he's on stage in Israel and he's like, the existence of Israel really pushes my loyalty to America, quite frankly. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care what Ben does. Ben's a grown man. I wish he seems like a nice guy, great businessman, a great family man. I'm not complaining or hating. I'm just simply pointing this stuff out. He says it. I say it. They write articles. He says it. I say the same exact thing he says. It's the most anti-Semitic thing ever said, even though it's been printed in articles 15 times. It's just like a crazy double standard, and it's pretty wild. So I'm just trying to show people like the reality of like not everybody in this country has loyalty to 2 countries or 3 countries. Some people don't. Some people do. And if people tell you that they do and you say that they do, it doesn't make you a hateful person. And, that's all I've ever really said. They twist it out of proportion, but it is what it is. I'm going to read some comments now. Let me know what you think in the comment section about Eric Adams. And it is what it is. I understand at a certain point when you start getting out there, they're going to twist your words, exaggerate, and just frame it in the craziest way. They've done it a million times. And, it is what it is. If people go through to what I actually said, then they'll know what I'm talking about. I don't think every pharmaceutical industry is bad or every pharmaceutical company is necessarily bad. But at the same time, I do think that there are pharmaceutical lobbyists that pay Washington to get their way. So when I talk about that, I'm not anti-pharmetic. I don't hate all of big pharma or anything. It's not a hateful thing. It's just like it's getting a little too much. And at the certain point, lobbyists pay for influence. And that's the same thing with certain individuals. If I point out a certain individual and I notice what he says and what he wants and the foreign policy he wants, and I point it out and I say, that's the foreign policy that this donor wants. And he's, in many ways, I would say influencing politicians in both parties, they say that that's anti-Semitic. It's not anti-Ukrainian to say that there's people that donate money to America to fight Ukraine. It's not anti-China to say that there's certain people in America that, China controls. I think not everyone's controlled by China, but some people are in some sort of form. If you do business in China, the CCP is in on the business. So you can't really do business in China without being in bed with China in some way. I'm not even really upset about that in the sense of like, that's how the world is currently. If you're in business and you want to do business to 1 billion people in China, that's the game you have to play. I just want to talk about it without being called anti this and anti that, but that doesn't seem like what's happening. So I would say, to wrap it up and get back to some of your comments, let me know what you think about the Eric Adams thing. In a weird way, I'm grateful that this happened at a time where everybody's kind of seeing how ridiculous it is, because they've taken it on the biggest stage ever with Elon Musk and Twitter. They're trying to say that his platform's anti-Semitic. They're trying to say that, libs of TikTok, who I believe is a Jewish woman, she's anti-Semitic. Ben Shapiro fights with leftists and rights, and they say, you're not a real one, I'm a real one. Oh, that's anti-Semitic. You can't say I'm not a real one, or Bernie Sanders is not a real one. I don't care. It's not my religion or ethnicity, to the sense of you can decide who is what. When Ben Shapiro and Bernie Sanders fight over like what it means to be Jewish, you don't see me chiming in that much, because it's like they can decide what, they could argue. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a big deal to me. But then they'll say Ben Shapiro's anti-Semitic because he said this. Bernie Sanders anti-Semitic because he wants to cut aid to that country. This person's anti-Semitic because they want to do this. It's like it's getting to the point where it's like the word racist, where it just doesn't mean anything what it used to, because everybody's using it. Your toilet paper's racist. My white wall's racist. I got to paint it black and put a socialist fist on it, or else they're mad at me. It's like, it's getting so old. And, as time goes on, the truth is just going to get more and more popular, just like it did with Eric Adams. I mean, he used to want to be a sanctuary city. Now he's screaming and crying because his sanctuary city is failing. You know what I'm saying? It's not working. It can't work. America's not going to work. This is a big issue. This is a real issue. Infrastructure, economy, like having law and order to some extent. It's not this like fighting over podcasts and words, and this type of stuff is just getting old, and I think a lot of people are tired of it. Let me see real quick. Someone said we have no federal leadership. They're all participating profit shares. Theater for the serfs. We are the serfs. Wise up. I hear that. I had a conversation with my buddy today, and he goes, Anomaly, I know people say not to fight with the comments, but he's like, that's my favorite part. It's really funny when you do that. So, some people are like, don't ignore the comments, but in my head, it's a funny thing. Like yesterday, someone was like, you'll be great one day. And I was like, oh, one day. Thank you. I appreciate it. I thought it was funny, but some people don't like it. But because my friend likes it, I'm going to keep doing it. So if anybody has anything to say, I'm a New Yorker. God bless. New York is one of the best states, cities. Like I love New York City when it's New York City. Now I wouldn't go to New York City if they paid me. I don't want to be there. Fix it. You know what I'm saying? Make it great again. And then I'll come. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. Someone said Eric Adams is lying. He's only trying to sound rational at this point because the plan is already finished. Part of me agrees with you. I don't trust him or anything. He's a politician, but you might be right. I do think that it seems like now that it's his problem, he's trying to deal with it. But you might be right. I wouldn't vote for him. I would vote for the Republican. But I would say that it does seem like he's like legitimately kind of freaking out, because if you're the mayor now and your budget, like you realize you're screwed. I don't think, and this is maybe a controversial thing, but I don't think every Democrat or Republican is necessarily a bad person. And I'm not saying he's like a great person. I think he's an opportunist. I think he wanted the attention and the leadership. But in reality, I don't think he's a good leader. I wouldn't vote for Eric Adams. It's not like he's my best friend. But I don't necessarily think he is like the top of the pyramid, like, establishing this order. I think he probably just fell for the politics, got into the position, knew how to play both sides, and now it's his problem. And I do believe that he has a soul, and I think that he doesn't want New York City to be completely destroyed. And now he's like, crap, New York City's getting destroyed, and there's really not much I could do about it. And like, to me, it does seem like he's legitimately freaking out. Like, I don't think he's a good leader. But I don't think he's like the master orchestrator of what's going on. I think he just like bought into it until he couldn't buy into it anymore, because he's sitting with his government guys and they're going over budgets, and his whole budget's screwed. He's like, my whole job is screwed now because I allowed all these people to come in and they came here, and I said I was a sanctuary city. So someone said he's just trying to get federal dollars. Now that's probably true. You're right, Tom. Maybe I'm a sucker and he just wants the federal money. I think you're right. I don't feel pity for them destroying the city, but I do like New York City. It sucks. This is what I'm trying to do with my platform too. Like, I never wanted to do news. I'm just tired of it, dude. And I'm glad I did what I did, because if I would have just sat there and done nothing, they still would have locked me in my house. I never would have made it in the music industry because I never would have played along to the stupid stuff. They would have probably tried to put me in a dress and, chop my penis off if I would have tried to sign a record deal. They're like, Anomaly, everything's going well, but what if you rapped about pills and pharmaceuticals and crime and chopped your dick off and, wore a dress? Do you ever think about that? And I'd be like, no, that sounds crazy. They're like, you sure, dude? You might sell a lot of records in Mexico. It's like, why would I sell records in Mexico? Well, because we're going to put you on a song with Bad Bunny and Peso Pluma. It's like, I don't think I ever would have made it there anyway, but once we locked down, I was like, dang, I'm so glad I did what I did, because I thought this was a crazy, unsafe job. Like, social media is this and that. But then everybody with normal jobs got locked in their house. And I'm like, damn, this world is nuts. This world is nuts. What am I supposed to do? Wear a mask, freaking inject myself with synthetic mRNA, and they say, screw you if I have a side effect? Like, I don't even know what I would be doing if it wasn't this, because this world is like psychotic. I legitimately feel way worse than I feel for myself, for other people. Like, imagine your kid wants to play baseball, and then he's 18 years old, and you have to tell him that you don't want him to go to college because they're going to try to inject him with synthetic mRNA. And then imagine he does it and has a crazy side effect, and you feel bad because you didn't want to stop his career. But I've heard this story so many times. That's why I go so hard at Trump and even Vivek. It's not because I'm hateful. It's not because I want to hurt them. I hope Republicans win the next election. It's just because, like, you know, this is crazy crap that just happened, and gaslighting us like it never happened, and gaslighting it like Republicans didn't fail us is crazy. Republicans are better on medical tyranny. I'll vote for them 10 times out of 10. If DeSantis is the nominee, I'll vote for him. If Trump's the nominee, I'll vote for him. If Vivek is the nominee, I'll vote for him too. It's just, I think it's really Trump and DeSantis at this point. I think that DeSantis would beat Biden by 10 points. I personally think Trump's going to lose to Biden at this point. But I hope he doesn't, but I think he will. And I think people in MAGA are underestimating what other people feel outside of it. But I hope I'm wrong. And as much as people cried about what I've said and what I've done, if Trump's the nominee, I guarantee you my videos will be more convincing than other people's videos. The same people that are like Trump, 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 and they got mad at me for what I said, I'm going to make videos to try to wake people up to the reality that he's probably the lesser of two evils and not just run around and sell merchandise. So, you know, you can thank me later, but I'm not here for the wrong reasons. It's just what we lived through was insane. And all these politicians are trying to act like, oh, it wasn't a big deal. I didn't know. It didn't happen. It's like, it definitely happened. And, you know, it's seeing what they're doing to these January 6ers too. I've been on record and said, I don't think it was a great day. I didn't go. You know, I feel like it was a sloppy rally. I don't think that Trump's leadership was particularly good, but I don't think it's a crime. I think it's a mistake, but not a crime. Some of these people, they're getting 22 years. They weren't even there. And they're getting 22 years. I mean, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? There's a video. I don't want to play it because I don't have it on me, but there were Kavanaugh protesters banging on the door, freaking out, destroying stuff. You know, that was a federal building. That was a moment where they were trying to stop a political process. Did any of those people get 22 years in jail? That's insane. I have to say, if you smash a window at a federal building, use your brain. You're going to go to jail or you're going to go to court. You can't just smash building. You can't smash windows anywhere, but especially like as an adult or as a kid, use your brain. Smashing window, crime. Smashing federal building window, bigger crime. They're going to screw you over because you shouldn't do that shit. If you do that, you're an idiot. At the same time, if a Republican does that and gets 10 years in jail and a Democrat does it and they get a slap on the wrist, what's going on? If a Democrat group of activists, you know, go through the Capitol and try to stop a nomination of a Supreme Court justice, and nobody gets in big trouble, but then a bunch of Republicans do the same thing and get 22 years, 17 years, 15 years, 10 years, 8 years, there's a massive shift in the standards, and everybody knows that. So as somebody that doesn't think that was a good day, just like everyone else, it's nuts what's going on, and they keep going further and further and further. You know, Tucker Carlson brought attention to the Gretchen Whitmer plot recently, where it was this plot where they arrested some guys for trying to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, which is nuts, and they're idiots for going along with it. That's stupid. But I think more than half the people in that were federal agents that set the guy up. It's like, I believe that BuzzFeed News reported, their investigation division reported that the feds hatched that plot in the first place. Like, you're dumb if you fall for it, for sure. But like, were they trying to stop a plot or were they trying to create one? You know, everybody knows where it's like, they're trying so hard to make it look like everybody against the lockdown wasn't good. And I don't care if it's a police officer, a federal agent, a truck driver, a Democrat, or a liberal. My opposition to the lockdowns wasn't terroristic or mean or harsh. You know, what they did to this country was insane. And I don't give a shit who hears this. You know, they lock people in their house, childhood obesity go up. A lot of people that were ex-drug addicts got back on drugs. They killed themselves. You know what I'm saying? Pharmacy overdoses increased. You know, kids couldn't play sports and they didn't have things. Domestic abuse rised in a lot of places because people were stuck at home and couldn't do anything. You know, a lot of businesses were destroyed. I think over 100,000 businesses. They imploded the economy. They forced mass kids for 2-3 years. They lied about this vaccine. Oh, it's going to block transmission and you're never going to get sick with COVID. They said all that crap. Then everybody got it. And now they're sitting back and like, we didn't force you to get the vaccine. Well, yeah, you didn't necessarily stick it in their arm, but you told a bunch of veterans and that they're not going to be able to get the money that they worked for if they didn't get it. You threatened a lot of retired people and said, you're not going to get that money if you don't do it. You threatened a lot of young athletes and said, you're not going to be able to play in this league if you don't get it. So you kind of did force people. Yes, not literally, and people should have stuck up, but this was like the craziest crap. And now they're trying to point out and be like, oh, look at this thing. So everybody who opposes the lockdown is like these people. No, they're not. Everybody who did it, and I don't even care, but there's certain people on the right that are like, oh, Anomaly's a QAnon guy now because of his interview with Vivek. I'm QAnon. I'm one of the most outspoken people since 2017 disagreeing with QAnon. I've never agreed with QAnon, not for a single second. I've done interviews with Q decoders in 2018 saying there's certain elements of some stuff you're saying that I see eye to eye on, but for the most part, I've always thought QAnon was a psyop. I always thought it was fake, but this is how they smear your character. When you're right on target, when you're authentic, when you're not bought by the pharmaceutical industry, when you're not bought out by the Uniparty, they say, oh, Anomaly's QAnon because he gave a good interview to Vivek. Oh, Anomaly's anti-Semitic because he talked about certain donors donating hundreds of millions of dollars and outwardly telling you what their foreign policy is. And then I connect the dots and they say it's hate speech. I'm anti-Semitic for saying what Ben Shapiro says himself, but I'm not allowed to say it. It's just like a joke. And I don't hate anybody. There are Palestinian activists that literally hate Israel. I'm not one of them. I'm sorry if that disappoints some people. I don't think I'm important enough to tell Israel and Palestine whose land that is. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Some people feel like they are inspired to do that. I'm not. I'm not God. I don't run the world. Like I said, it's like, do I go to Yemen and tell them to stop fighting Saudi Arabia? Honestly, I don't really know what's going on there. Ukraine and Russia, I would like them to stop killing each other. I would like the war to end. That affects us a lot because we send a lot of money there. And when Hawaii is burning down, it's like when Ukraine gets more money, it seems like a war that could have ended a year ago. So I chime in on that a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's not my job to tell people what's going on. But long story short, they act like I'm the craziest, worst person. I'm not even like, there's literally Jewish rabbis in the street that think that Israel shouldn't exist, and they get better press somehow than me. And I don't even think that, but whatever, it is what it is. And those guys are pretty wild. It's like against Zionism and stuff. They're always like marching at events. That's their opinion. That's their perspective. I believe they have the American right to say that and debate it with other people without being like, obliterated as well. Like, I don't, that's their worldview, and other people can disagree, but is what it is. Someone said, don't trust the experts. Anomaly. Don't be an anti-vaxxer. It's like, dude, what haven't you been? Oh, you're an anti-vaxxer if you don't want an mRNA shot. Okay. That's what I am. I hate everything ever because I don't want to inject myself with synthetic mRNA. That Operation Warp Speeded through trials in 8 months, maybe a little longer. And, they have no liability for side effects and injuries. If people remember my reporting from 2020, that's what I was telling everybody. I didn't tell people what to do because I didn't want to be financially liable for making a health decision for you. But I told people everything they needed to know. And I hope people made a decision for themselves. Lots of people told me that it was my reporting that really influenced their decision. But I told people what they needed to know. And the truth was, no offense to these other left-wing and right-wing journalists, but they were all like, go get it, go get it, go get it. And they never even told you the truth about what it was. Here's what I told people. I said, listen, Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson have no liability for side effects, injuries, or deaths, or anything that happens to you because of the PrEP Act. And I said that there was an emergency declared by the HHS director that made the PrEP Act in effect, and it was an emergency. So they didn't have liability for side effects and injuries. And you know what the crazy part is? 3 years later, there's a lot of people that didn't fare so well, and there's a lot of people that are fine. I'm not trying to fearmonger. There's millions of people that seem totally fine. And then there's a lot of people that aren't fine, and they suffered, a bad side effect, just like every medication has. But long story short, once that happens to you, if it happens, they don't say, oh yeah, like Anomaly tried to tell you that. They say, oh, we didn't force you to do it. We didn't force you to do it, but they didn't tell you that, did they? I tried to blast that out there all 2020, and I took a lot of heat for it because I'm like, Let people make their own decisions, but don't just tell them, get it, get it, get it. You know how many right-wingers were like, get it, get it, get it. Just go get the vaccine. Just go get the vaccine. The right, get it, get it. Tell people both sides of the story. Sure, you could get sick, but also they don't have liability. So if something happens, if they're not going to say, we told you to get it, they're going to say, you made that decision on your own. We just took away everything from you to make that decision. You know, it was the most aggressive, like, I would say, like, holding people for ransom, you know, propaganda scheme in modern history. And now both parties are trying to gaslight people into, and then like the press that's talking trash about me, they're like, oh, Anomaly's like, you know, critical of the pharmaceutical industry. Damn right. Damn right I am. Look at our country. We're fatter than ever. People take more pills than ever. Mental health is down. That's also partially like cell phones, technology, lack of family, etc. And that's not anybody's fault but our own. It's just like the advancement of technology. But long story short, you're damn right I'm critical of the pharmaceutical industry. Why wouldn't I be? And to those people that say, oh, Anomaly is just being mean to Vivek, to be fair, I respect him and his team more than I ever did because they came on the interview. You guys don't even understand. I said to his team, I don't trust him, I don't believe him, and I'm not buying a shtick, and they still came on. They still came on. That's ballsy. Whether he did a good job or a bad job, you could decide. That's brass balls to come on my show when I said I don't trust the guy. And he still came on. I respect him for that. That being said, the reason I gave a tough interview is because we just got, in my view, scammed by the government and the pharmaceutical industry. And some of Trump's hires that were the most suspect, in my opinion, were pharmaceutical executive CEOs that he put at the top of HHS. And they were, you know, just like people talk about Fauci, nobody talks about the people that Trump actually hired that were very similar. But long story short, of course, I'm going to ask a pharmaceutical CEO about things he did a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. He's running for the Republican Party, and he's a pharmaceutical CEO. It doesn't mean he can't do it. It doesn't mean I'll never vote for him or I'll never compliment him. It's just someone needs to give a journalistic interview about it. You know what I'm saying? We just got scammed and bamboozled by Big Pharma. So if a pharmaceutical CEO pops out and says, hey, I want to be the leader of your party, of course I'm going to ask questions. I'm not being a dick. I'm not being rude. People ask, they're like, oh, I can't believe you did that and this and that. Okay. You know, some people liked it, some people didn't. But at the end of the day, whichever side of the fence you're on, I asked the questions, I pressed. It wasn't the most friendly interview he's ever had. And iron sharpens iron. And, you know, you could see the results and decide for yourself. But I don't regret a single aspect of how it went down. Someone said, what's crazy about Elon is he chose a radical left CEO. I think these people are good with words, but their actions are quite different. I don't know if she's radical left, but I don't know if that's true. But what I will say is this. If you get high level, like as high level as Elon or Donald Trump or like a Republican politician, if you get to that level, the game is harder. You know what I'm saying? This is my compassion and empathy that's going to come out right here. The game it's easier to talk than it is to do. And I understand that. And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but like the game you have to play if you run a social media company, Elon's being sued for space, like he's suing for SpaceX. They're suing him for this. They're saying he's racist and he didn't hire this way. He's under lawsuits, this and that. He's playing a different game. And I think sometimes you pluck people that'll like protect you against certain things and put them into place. The question is, I think actions speak louder than words. So it's like, if somebody hires a bunch of bad people and then caves in a million different directions, then it's okay to be disappointed. But, you know, the time will tell what's going on with Elon. I personally believe his little conflict in court with the ADL is one of the more important like legal cases in recent history, just because it's showing tens of millions of people how not just the ADL, but a lot of special interest groups, a lot of politicians. And for those who think I'm just blaming a certain ethnicity, there's a lot of Christians that are not Jewish that also do this also. People like Nikki Haley, people like, it's not just one group. And I've never said that, but in general, they use anti-Semitism and weaponize it to basically just stop anyone from saying anything they don't want them to say or doing anything. And that's what it seems like the ADL has done to Elon, because he wouldn't cave to certain policies. So that's, to me, regardless of who Elon hired or what he did, this little public conflict right now is one of the most important ones, because now tens of millions of people are seeing that the word anti-Semitic is overused. And the ironic part about it, and I don't know if it's necessarily irony, but I sometimes I use the word ironic wrong, and then people point it out. But anyway, Ted Cruz does all this stuff and then he gets called an anti-Semite. Ron DeSantis does all this stuff and then he gets called an anti-Semite. Donald Trump does everything he has to do to prove he's not anti-Semitic and they still call him anti-Semitic. If he says something about Congress, they say he's anti-Semitic. If he has a dinner meeting, they say he's anti-Semitic. If he doesn't agree with some media, it's like they do it to everybody. So my message to conservatives, liberals, libertarians, I don't care what ethnicity you are. It doesn't even matter if you're Jewish. They'll still call you anti-Semitic. So at the end of the day, I'm just tired of Republicans being like, oh, look what the ADL did. And then the next week they'll do it as well. And that's what's happening to me now. It's a lot of conservative media. It's not even liberal media doing it because that's what they've done for years. So it's not just the ADL. They're just like high level at it. Everybody weaponizes and uses that word. And one of the main things that they're upset about is the fact that I've pointed out how the definition's expanding. Like, what if the State Department had a website and says this is what it means to be racist? It's racist to not agree with everything Africa does. It's racist to not want the border open. And this is the new definition of the law. Wouldn't you look at that and say, I'm not a racist, but I don't agree with this terminology? I mean, you're expanding the word and weaponizing it and using it in a way to quash any sort of dissent to certain politics. That's what they've done with the word anti-Semitism. And it's happening in both parties. And I speak about it often. And that's why, certain people don't like it, certain media companies, certain influencers of all kinds. And it is what it is. It's real. It's true. And the point that I'm getting to is Elon's bringing a lot of attention to it now. And it's become so widespread and mainstream that it's like everyone's understanding. There's multiple people making comedy videos about it. It's become a joke. And I don't want stuff like this to become a joke. I mean, if it becomes a joke, naturally it is what it is, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's not going to work forever. Like they call people sexist all the time if they want a traditional marriage. But at the end of the day, more and more people are becoming traditional because it's just natural. You get what I'm saying? It's natural to want a family. It's natural to have a wife. It's not like, it's not all the things they're pushing in the press and in left-wing politics. It's against nature. And you could do it as much as you really want, but at a certain point, people are going to gravitate towards reality. And I think it's happening at a rapid rate because at a certain age, you could think certain things, but as you grow up and as you live it, it becomes more obvious that there's better solutions to like live a meaningful and happy life. So I've seen that rising, like, traditional life is rising, like organic living is rising. People working out has become like a niche market. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's just natural. And Eric Adams is the same way. It's like now what he would probably consider, crazy and racist or whatever, like anti-Mexican is now his policy of like, I need money. The illegals, they're ruining New York City. Like, I don't know what to do. It's like, what, dude? That's well, yesterday's you shouldn't say that becomes today's everybody's saying it. So, being years ahead of schedule is that's the price you pay. It's just funny to me too, of all the things I've done. Like I've done so many interesting, cool things. I've like crushed certain reports. You don't get a Pulitzer or a pat on the back if you do good journalism. You get censored, deleted, and falsely labeled. Like that's what I realized. The people winning the Pulitzers are the ones who lied about Russia collusion. The left-wing journalists who lied about Trump-Russia collusion, they're getting Pulitzer prizes. The people making it in the music industry, they're the ones pushing the agenda a lot of times. It's the people that do the best reporting that get smeared, deleted. They try to, strong arm your business. And it's like, that's just the world we live in. It's like if you're a politician and you tell the truth, the media hates you. If you're a politician and you're full of crap, the media promotes you. We saw that with Trump from 2015 to 2019. He was speaking more truth than any other politician, and they hated that. Like they hated when he spoke the truth. They didn't hate when he sold the vaccine. That's when CNN started complimenting him. They're like, look, Trump's finally right. And it's like, uh-oh. When they say Trump's finally right, that means Trump's finally wrong. But it's like inverted reality in a lot of left-wing press. Someone said, don't believe Eric Adams. I wouldn't say I believe him, but at a certain point, I'm going to end on this note. Hopefully I end. I understand left wing versus right wing. I get it. I get the Democrats versus Republicans, Trump versus Biden. I get it. I'm not telling you that the left wing is great, and I don't want you to think that I'm saying that. But here's what I do think needs to happen to make America great again. people got to get out of this like binary, because at the end of the day, it's like, we need the Democratic Party to start talking more like Eric Adams. We need the Democrats to move back to the center, at least somewhat close. That's the only way our party is going to get better. We can't have Donald Trump versus Joe Biden lose an election and they go further left for 4 years. Like, the entire country needs to drag back to like common sense stuff. So it's not necessarily bad. Like, if 90% of Democrats were like Eric Adams and talking about this stuff now in 5 years, that's actually better. And I think once that happens, like, right now, it's so like left versus right that both sides are able to do nothing because they just point at each other. And then people are like, ah, and then it's like, look, 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 look. And everyone's looking around and both parties are kind of screwing us over. So I know that it's not like, I don't want to give this guy a pass or anything and say, oh, I feel so bad for him. If he supported, like sanctuary cities, he's getting what he wanted. But I do think that people, like, the society needs to come back to like normal at some point. We can't just fight left and right. And, I disagree with most Republican influencers when they cry civil war, civil war. There's not going to be a civil war. It's not like the liberals from Vermont are going to march down to Texas and fight you. There's going to be no fights. There's just going to be feds. So anybody telling you civil war, civil war, civil war, they're probably trying to get you in a Fed trap, whether they know it or not, because nobody's fighting. We use technology. People are crying on Twitter. They're writing articles. For the most part, liberals and conservatives disagree, but it's like it's an economic, it's a psychological, it's a societal battle going on, but it's not 1776 and it's not the 1800s. Nobody's marching to anywhere to physically fight anyone unless they're going to get arrested by the cops or the feds in some sort of little like Antifa versus Proud Boys skirmish. But in general, it's like, the real battle is seeing through the lies. The real battle is realizing that, yes, the left has gone crazy. The right's more common sense, but we have to change the perception of the country and get people back to normal. We can't just keep going like this and people freaking out at each other. Like, that's not sustainable. And at a certain point, like, we need to like shift in a similar direction, or at least get our leadership to know that they're not going to be able to get elected if they keep pushing this nonsense. And, this is one thing I will compliment other candidates for. And I think in many ways, Trump did this at first, and there's some element of it, but at a certain point, you do want to be able to convince people who disagree with you. And that's something that seems like a lost art on both sides, where people don't even care anymore. Like, let me give you an example. I did like an Instagram live with somebody yesterday, and he said, my wife was liberal. She never listened to me about anything, but Vivek, I'm sorry if I mispronounce his name, she got him. She likes Vivek, and now she's thinking more conservative. Whether I like him, you like him, I trust him, you trust him, it doesn't necessarily matter. Like, if he's picking up certain liberals and turning them into conservatives, that's not a bad thing if you're a conservative. So, this is the game that RFK is playing. RFK has gotten a lot of conservatives. RFK is getting a lot of like far left progressives, but he's not as far left on certain policies. It's like Trump, I think at a certain point did that and got a lot of people. But I feel like now it's just like me. It's so magged out that he's just milking his base. But that's why, if you look at, and I'm not saying they're right, but if you look at election betting odds right now, we're losing. As soon as Trump started going up in the polls, you could see the Republican Party's chances of beating Biden went down in the polls. Right now, Trump is an underdog to win the next election to Biden by quite a bit. Does that mean it's official? Of course not. It's always going to change. But it's going to change based off public perception. And this is my one critique that people think is TDS, but it's not TDS. It's just basic psychology. If you just only feed your base meat all the time and you don't really get outside your own bubble to see that Vivek is picking up liberals, that RFK is picking up a lot of people, and Trump is just trumping out on his own side, and like the people that really like him, and the people that don't, and the people on the fence are like, maybe I'll vote for him or not. Like, there's not a real attempt to bring people in, and I don't think that's going to win these swing states. I don't think that's going to win Pennsylvania. I don't think that's going to win, and you don't want to cut it close in Pennsylvania because it'll happen if it takes 3 days. So I think Republicans, if they lose the next election, it's because they're not thinking about this stuff. They're not thinking about being convincing. They're not thinking about breaking the narrative of the media and trying to pull people in with their own narrative. They're just riding Trump's narrative, but it's a tiresome narrative. It's a narrative that makes sense to his base, but a lot of people are just tired of it. And I'm not saying that you can't do some of that or this, but I personally think that, we'll see what happens. But if whoever the nominee is, like, do people and influencers, et cetera, are they going to try to be convincing and honest and break the mold and get people to understand? Or are they just going to try to do whatever they do all the time and like just feed their base while other people are like, I don't know, that's a little too much for me. I'm not saying to be fake. I'm not saying to be a phony, but there is a certain art to getting your message to the right people. Someone said Trump has no path to electoral victory. I hope he wins. If he gets the nominee, I hope he beats Biden, and I don't think he will. I really don't. And I don't think he's even trying. And every time I bring this stuff up, people are like, I don't need to try. Blah, blah. It's like, all right, whatever, So we'll see what happens. But that's the best thing I could say is like, it's big. It's bigger than left and right. It's bigger than red and blue. You got to understand there's a perception and a mindset battle. There is a societal cultural battle going on. And I know from a lot of I would say people in college, et cetera, talking to people that are older, that have kids, the kids are liberal. I don't know what Charlie Kirk is saying and TPUSA. They're like, oh, there's a huge surge in conservatives. Maybe I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying, I don't think so. I don't see it. I think most of the youth is left. And the thing is, if they're moderate, the moderate youth is often further left than we were when we were moderate, because that's the society they grew up in. They grew up in put your pronoun here. And a lot of people don't really agree with it, but they just think it's nice to go along with it because they're nice. So like, in order to fix the perception problem of America, you have to admit it's happening. And I feel like a lot of people, they want it to change, but they're not really like trying that hard. It's like, people just need to like me. Like they really don't. It's like, I understand that. I would like people to like me, but I understand that that's not always going to be the case. So I have to do something about it. Like people don't watch my videos for no reason. They think they're good. They think I'm entertaining. Some people watch for different reasons, but like that's called self-awareness, is being like, yeah, not everyone's going to agree with this message, but is there anything I could do better to really get it across and put it in a way that is more relatable or more kind or more compassionate? And if you don't think like that, then it's going to appeal to a certain audience, and it's not. But I do think that Republicans are overestimating how much people actually like them. That's my opinion. It's like a lot of people do and a lot of people don't. It's going to be like a coin flip election, but I think people think just because Joe Biden's so old that he's just going to lose. Like, oh, look at him. It's like maybe, but maybe not. And I want to give an example that I feel like is a really good example. And I've never heard any other Republican tell the truth about this, but I know I'm right. And I feel like people are going to agree with me after this. Everyone says when it comes to John Fetterman and Dr. Oz, right? Everyone says, how could people vote for John Fetterman? John Fetterman is a vegetable. He's a cartoon character. He could barely talk. I mean, the dude is like, it's like someone went in his brain and put it on the sidewalk and just left him there. He's a weirdo. But, I think I honestly feel, I wouldn't say I feel bad for the guy. I think he needs help. Like, I really don't think he's all the way there. He's like injured or something. But long story short, everyone on the right says, well, how could they possibly vote for John Fetterman? And the truth is, I would vote for the Republican John Fetterman over the liberal AOC. I would vote for the Republican John Fetterman over the liberal Dr. Oz. I would vote for the Republican John Fetterman over the liberal Joe Biden or Ilhan Omar. It's like, I would vote for the Republican even if they were brain damaged, like it seems like John Fetterman might be, because it's a policy world. If you want an abortion, you vote for John Fetterman. If you believe climate change is killing everybody, you vote for John Fetterman. It doesn't matter if the dude talks like Vivek or he can't even form a sentence like Joe Biden. People vote for what they believe or what they perceive as the most important issue or who they like oftentimes. So, I like, as much as every Republican says, how in the world could they do that? I would do the same thing. I would vote for a brain damaged Republican if I thought that whoever was running his show and whoever was puppeting him would put policy in there that was better than Democrat policy. And this is what I feel like people just like, how do they vote for Biden? How do they vote for Fetterman? Because they don't agree with you and they don't like you. So they vote for anybody who goes against you because they want abortions and climate change laws and gay flags or something, like that's what certain people want. It's the truth. If you go to Austin, it's everywhere. If you go to LA, it's everywhere. It's not everybody, but like, I feel like certain Republicans try to act like it doesn't exist. And they call me like a pessimist or something like, oh, we won all 50 states. It's like, we didn't go to major cities in this country. There's a lot of far left people. Talk to anybody that's like 20 to 27. 90% of them are liberal and they're all voting now and they all care and they're all activists and they were all locked in their house and they all don't have real jobs, and that's all they do. It's all by design. Democrats are playing chess. They know exactly what they're doing and they're doing it very intelligently. And like Republicans just love to like role play and cosplay and be like, we're going to win because we want to. You're not. You're not going to beat Joe Biden. You want to beat Joe Biden. I want you to beat Joe Biden. You should be, but you're not going to beat him at this rate because you're not figuring out the game. And as much as I don't trust DeSantis, he would beat Joe Biden by 5 to 10 points. He's doing a different thing. He's picking up different people. Trump is trumping out. He might and he might not. But if he doesn't, I think it's going to be because in that world, people aren't even trying to put out a message that makes sense to people. Whether you like Vivek or not, or whether you like me or not, I've made a lot of liberals think twice. Vivek, I've already seen, like, my people are telling me that he's getting a lot of liberals, just the way he talks, the way he looks. You know what I'm saying? He's a little different. He's an American Indian. So it's like, okay, this guy's, some people see that, you know, if you're a minority and you see someone that's like, not just like older white guy, a lot of people are like, it might not be what you want, but a lot of people are like, that guy I get, you know, he's coming from an angle that makes more sense to me. That's the truth of reality. I mean, if you watch fighting and stuff, go to a Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo fight. Most of the black people there are going for Mayweather. Most of the Mexicans are going for Canelo. That's just how the world works, whether they want to say it or not. It doesn't make them racist. It's just something gravitates people towards, like, you know, their ethnicity a lot of times. It's just if you notice it, they'll call you racist or whatever. But long story short, like, I'm not saying you have to be that to pick up people, but like, this is my one thing with Trump is like, you know, I think he just kind of is like staying in his lane, and that lane has been milked as much as it can. And I don't know if it's like getting enough people to the movement. And it's really about swing states. You know, people are like, who are you voting for? It doesn't matter. The primary matters, but honestly, like, my vote doesn't matter in the general. It doesn't. I live in a state that is a blue state in California. And it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? My vote is going to be thrown in the trash, maybe literally, but no, you get what I'm saying? This state's going Democrat. It shouldn't, but it will. Hopefully it'll change, but it probably won't. You know, there's going to be 3 to 5 states where the election really matters. That's the truth. Like, it doesn't matter what you think here. It matters what people in Pennsylvania think. It matters what suburban wives in Wisconsin think. And I've spoken to women. There's a lot of women who love Trump. And there's a lot of women who don't. They're like conservative. They'd vote for DeSantis. They'd vote for this, but they're not going to vote for Trump. And I know people don't want to think that, but I've seen it. And, you know, I feel like the campaign, once the primary's over, they got to think about this stuff. And I don't want 4 more years of Joe Biden. I don't think this country can really last at this point because, like, the stuff he's doing is so lopsided and deranged. It's just like, it's too much. Someone said swing states will go to Dem. At this point, I think so, because when I say stuff like this, people are like, why are you going to win? Because you want to win? Well, no, everyone likes him. They don't, though. Like, UFC likes Donald Trump. You know, a lot of farmland likes Donald Trump. A lot of conservatives like Donald Trump. He has a lot of support in certain cities, but there's a lot of people that like him and a lot of people that don't. And Democrats are crunching numbers. They're doing analytics of who does what, and they have a narrative. It's not about Joe Biden. The reason he doesn't have big rallies, Joe Biden's not going to win because of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to win because of climate change. Joe Biden's going to win because of abortion. Joe Biden's going to win because of, you know, their perception of Republicans and how the media skews it. Joe Biden's going to win because Trump is a Marvel character that people think are the hero or the villain. And he's going to drive just as many Democrats as Republicans to the polls. They think they're watching like Iron Man 7 or something, or Rocky 4. And that's the reality of it. I just think that what I've seen, and maybe I'm out of touch, but what I've seen is a lot of people just, they live in their world and they don't really even think about this. And if you say it, they'll say you have Trump derangement syndrome. It's like, who cares? We like this. Like, and that group is not as big as it once was. And there's other people that'll come over because they hate Biden. And then there's people that won't. So, you know, I do think it's worth considering. And I'm looking at, you can look at the election betting odds. When DeSantis and Trump were close, it was like this. And as soon as they started coming for Trump and they started elevating him through the arrests, he also tanked in the regular. And I follow a lot of pages too that are talking about Trump, like regular pages. A lot of them are conservative when they post things that aren't political about Trump, just like LGBT stuff. Like, everybody's conservative on these normie neutral pages, but when they post Trump stuff, everybody hates Trump. Like, it's not all the time, but it's one of those things where I'm like, people are ready for conservatism, but they just see him as like a character. So I've always said this. I think that they purposely strategically did this Trump arrest, knowing one of two things is going to happen. Either it works and they arrest somebody that they don't like, and, you know, people freak out and that plays in their advantage. Or 2, he doesn't get arrested, but he gets elevated in the primary, but they've tarnished his brand even more that he's easy to beat. As soon as they started doing these arrests, Republicans went from a big favorite in the primary to a big underdog. And that's like the reality. I'm not saying it's real or it's going to work. I'm just saying for now, the reality is that the betting odds are in the Democrats' favor. They know what they're doing. They're trying to elevate him in the primary and knock him down in the main election, in my view. Troy said, "You're an idiot." Yeah, tell that to suburban wives in Pennsylvania. I'm sure that's a message that's really going to help Trump. I've made one of my bigger videos was why Trump's not that bad. And it made millions of liberals, think twice. I know people that are like, my mom used to watch CNN. Now she watches Fox, which is not much better, but whatever. It's one of those things where the way you make a difference sometimes is getting the message to people that don't already agree with you. No offense, my guy. A lot of people like you don't care. It's like, screw you. Shut up. You're an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, is that your campaign message? You know what I'm saying? Is that how you're going to win? Like, do you not want to win? Do you think you have to win? Do you think that there's something that he could do better to win or no? This is the part where I feel like the right has embraced victim mentality. It's like, there's nothing we can do better. He made no mistakes. Every flaw he had was a secret success. He's perfect. He's got it. Don't worry. We don't have to do anything. The base doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to do anything. We're going to win the election. If we don't, we're going to say it's stolen, despite the fact that we didn't even really try to win it. Like, I don't understand this reality that you guys are living in. I've been out of it for years. You get what I'm saying? I don't understand it. Like, why wouldn't you want to listen to what I'm saying to try to elevate the candidate that you want, or at least consider it, even if you don't agree? No. What do you think you can do? Nothing. You don't have, right? That's the new Trump movement. Let's not do anything. We don't have to do anything. He's got it all under control. He'll do it. He'll win. And if he doesn't, we'll freak out and cry and get set up again, whatever. It's like, no, how about you try to actually win? How about you try to no, that's bad. That's Trump derangement syndrome, even thinking strategically. This is why the Democrats roll Republicans. Trump got in, they steamrolled him with COVID. Trump got out, they steamrolled him. They just steamroll you all the time. And the second someone's like, hey, let's not get steamrolled, you're like, shut up. That strategy. Democrats got psychologists. They're crunching numbers. They got media. They got organizations. They're strategically, brainwashing the kids with left-wingism. And that's the best you have for me. How dare you even think about it and talk about it? We don't even need to. Hoorah, rah. You're not going to. And as these kids get older, they're going to vote against you. And as the country becomes more diverse, they're going to vote against you. You're going to lose every election in 10 years, and you're never going to get power again if you don't win soon. And you don't even care because, God forbid, someone talks about it in a way that you don't understand. You freak out. Okay, then yell MAGA, MAGA, MAGA at the wall. And if Trump loses, complain. And then if you never win another election again, is that the country you want? I don't want to fail as a country. I don't want open borders. I don't want Joe Biden for 4 more years. So instead of just sitting, hoorah, rah, 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 I'm trying to look at what the Democrats are doing and be like, dang, I get how they're doing it. I understand how they're winning. And it's not just because of certain things that people say that's a victim mentality. They're doing also other things as well. It's not just like this or that. No, we're doing everything perfect. They just did the ballot thing, but everything we do is perfect. It's not perfect. They're doing 20 things right, and you're focused on one thing. Focus on that. Before, you know what I'm saying? You got to broaden the horizon of what you're thinking about. And I have to say, with Vivek too, it's like the way he talks about how Trump was a victim, but then I don't mind that he said that, and I don't mind that he said this. The whole point of my interview is like, which one are you? Are you that or are you that? He kind of talks about it in a runaround way, but like certain things he wrote in the book, I don't agree with everything, but certain things he was right about. He is right about the Republican Party being victim mentality. He is right about them exaggerating certain things, but some of it I didn't agree with. But that was the point I was trying to make, was like, which one? You know what I'm saying? Is it that or is it that? So it wasn't necessarily that I was against what he said. It was I was trying to figure out which one he really meant. And it's the same thing with the Paul and Daisy Soros scholarship. Obviously there's questions that people are going to have about a Paul and Daisy Soros scholarship, but in general, I don't care if he was rich. I don't care if he was poor. I don't care if he had $10 million in the bank. I don't care if he had zero. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to judge a man by how much money he has. The point that I made was he kept saying he didn't have the money, but he did have the money. And he went on a liberal platform and they said the same thing. And he said, I never said I didn't have the money, but there's a quote of him literally saying the opposite. So that was the point of that part. I'm not trying to hold a scholarship over someone's head and say that disqualifies you from ever running. It's just like, which one? You said you didn't say it, but you did say it. That was why I was trying to have certain moments, like, you know, people to, and you, I hope people have their own opinion about it, but just to explain, that's why I did what I did. It wasn't to be like, oh, I'm going to, you're written off forever. It's just like, you know, which one is it? Someone said, sadly, the truth doesn't always prevail. Catchy slogan, but it's not real. Dang. Did I see the interview he had on MSNBC? No, but I'm sure it was probably rougher than even mine. Maybe someone said Trump was on Dan Bongino radio show today. I'm sure Dan Bongino didn't ask one single journalistic question. I'm sure it was just like, Trump, how are you so amazing? Trump, how do you golf so well? Trump, how are you perfect? How do you do it? You know, no offense, but it's like, that's probably what happened. Someone said the interview made you look bad, dude. Well, I must be the best bad person ever because you're still watching my show and giving me attention. So I don't give bad people attention this much. It's like, it made you look so bad. That's why I'm here glued to the screen. Cool. And to be honest, I don't really care how people perceive it. I came to ask questions, get a response, and allow people to perceive it as they did. Okay. I wasn't there to be the good guy. I wasn't there to be the bad guy. I clearly wasn't there to just be like, oh, let's just be best friends and like hang out and talk about tennis. Like, no, you're running for president. That's cool. I want to give at least one journalistic interview, get these answers, have prepared, like, because what people don't realize too is like with the Candace interview, he's very smooth where he said, you know, this was airlifted. This was satire. Did you read the whole chapter? And they both said no. And then he said, well, you don't know what you're talking about. And they both had to fall back. Like, I guess it was satirical. I guess that was an airlifted piece. I read the whole chapter. So the reason I was pushing back was not to be a dick, but if I didn't read the chapter, he would have told me, oh, did you read the chapter? And I would have said no. And I would have not known. I did my research and I said, no, I read the whole chapter. The truth is the chapter wasn't airlifted. It is a chapter criticizing Donald Trump and Stacey Abrams and saying that Trump was wrong about voter fraud. That's okay if you believe that. I'm not mad at the book, but when he goes on a pro-Trump page like Candace or Drano, he tries to tell Trump supporters that he didn't say that in like a runaround way. Like, yeah, I said that, but I didn't really say it, but it's satirical, but it's airlifted. So if you didn't read the chapter, you'll watch that interview and go, oh, Drano is wrong. That's out of context. But in context, it's literally just more critical of Trump. I won't say anti-Trump. Like it's a decent chapter. I don't agree with everything he said, but it's a critical GOP Trump chapter. There's nothing wrong with that. Criticize the GOP and the Democrats. But when he's on a pro-Trump page, he'll act like he never said it and try to mislead the audience into thinking that it's just somehow out of context. But in context, it's exactly what you think it is out of context. So that's why I said what I said. Doesn't disqualify him. I'm not trying to hurt him. I think that he has brass balls for coming on the show, and actions speak louder than words. And right now, you know, all he has are words because he's never served office. My real opinion about him is look at the GOP. He'll get a position. He probably deserves a position. Why? Like, look at the rest of the Republican Party. It's a clown show. So you think Vivek cannot do something there? Of course he can. He's better than 90% of people already, and he's never done anything. So I think long story short, he'll get some sort of position, and then you should judge him by what he does in office. You know, that's all you really can do. There's only so much he could do until he can actually get stuff done. And I think his first position will probably be not president. And then if he crushes, you got to give him credit, right? If he gets in office and crushes, give him credit. But if he crushes, and then like Trump does a 180 and like goes in the other direction, you got to be able to call it out. That's where they get you sometimes with like Trump. It's like crush. Operation Warp Speed, you know, lockdown, slow the spread. It's like, whoa. And then everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, wait, no, you know? So that's all I'm saying. Give the credit where it's due. Give him credit for coming, but just pay attention to certain politics because, you know, a lot of the stuff that they're smearing me on, like you could see it on display. If you watch the Republican Party, one of the candidates had an Israel U.S. pin. I think the guy wasn't even Jewish. I think he was Christian. That's fine. A lot of Christians love Israel for multiple reasons, but I'm not telling him not to like Israel. It's just like if I see a pin, he goes to an American presidential campaign with another flag on his pin. Am I allowed to say that he has multiple loyalties. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know. I don't even know what his ethnicity is, and I don't even care. I'm hoping he's a white Christian, or else they'll call me another name. But in general, it's like, can I say that like if I wore an Italy America flag, you could say, why are you wearing that to an American president? You must love Italy. Oh no, that's anti-Italophobe. This is, and then Nikki Haley's like, oh, Israel doesn't need America. America needs Israel. She could say that, but isn't it obvious to everybody that, the Republican Party has heavy, favoritism towards that? It's fine. Just allow people to say it without calling them names. You know what I'm saying? Like allow people to understand that that's the Republican foreign policy, and allow people to debate it and converse. At what point is it like too much, where it's like, if I'm fine with all of that, but you're going to say that this is now a speech offense that I said it. Well, that's, that seems like it's coming at the expense of America. So that's all that I'm kind of weighing in on. Like, when does it become our problem? For example, Ukraine. If you don't like what's going on in the war in Ukraine and you want it to end and you want to peacefully like take America's influence out of it, or maybe it's, I don't know how you perceive it. Long story short, they'll say you're anti-Ukraine. They'll say you're pro-Putin. Oh, you must be Putin's little puppet if you don't want to fund Ukraine with weapons. Well, at what expense is this war? It doesn't mean you hate Ukraine if you want to pull out of Ukraine. There's a lot of different options. Let's give one example. Maybe both sides of the war getting murdered. We don't want Ukrainians to get murdered, and we don't want Russians to get murdered. And if the media says Ukraine's winning, but Ukraine's really losing, who's dying? Ukrainians. You guys are hurting Ukrainians if that's what's truly happening. And if not, then still both people are dying on both sides. So if you want to end the war, they'll say you hate Ukraine or you're pro-Putin. You might not be pro-Putin. You might just be like, I want this conflict to end. I don't believe that this is going to work the way it worked. And we have a bucket load of evidence to suggest why it wouldn't work. Look at Afghanistan, look at Iraq, look at Syria. Syria was one of the biggest refugee crises in modern history. Like, that was what it was. But like, where is the foreign policy of what we're doing? Like, where is the success story in the last 20 years? I'm not saying it's a complete failure, but America has spent trillions of dollars. And at the end of the day, they threw the Taliban back in charge of Afghanistan. It's like, take it away, trillions of dollars. Here you go. You can have it back. And we're just going to run away on a plane, or like, you get what I'm saying? Like, people have a right to disagree with what's going on in Ukraine. Doesn't make you pro-Putin, doesn't make you anti whatever the stupid crap they say. It's the same stuff with Israel. It's like, not everyone has to agree with single thing that they're doing. And if you notice certain lobbying patterns when it comes to certain individuals where they give money and they want a certain foreign policy, and you as an American citizen of any ethnic group perceive that it's coming at the expense of what your policy is, you're allowed to disagree. Democrats, Republicans, everybody disagrees on everything. But, there's just certain topics that if you disagree on, they call you names. If you disagree on anything LGBTQ+, you must hate them. You must be anti-LGBTQ. Technically, back like 20 years ago, people didn't want gay people to be married, and not everybody that believed that. They didn't hate people. They just didn't see the word marriage, the biblical version of it. They didn't see that as the proper format to do it, and it doesn't necessarily mean like, if you don't want this, it doesn't always mean like the craziest interpretation of it. It's like, oh, some people are hateful, but most people are not in those categories. They're literally just like, no, I just don't agree with that. I want a border wall. I don't hate Mexicans. I don't hate Guatemalans. I just want a border wall because it makes more sense to me to secure our borders, especially when we're like funding proxy wars in Ukraine. It makes sense. And, another aspect of the fires, I'm not going to start a conspiracy theory or say something that I can't prove. But what I will say is, every time a fire happens, they just say climate change immediately. They don't see if it was arson. They don't see if a crackhead started it, the millions of crackheads they have running around starting fires in cities. They don't care if it's arson or not. They don't care if their alarm system didn't work. They don't care if it was a power line that fell down or mismanagement of the forest like they're doing in California. They don't take and then say it's also the climate, and they do it like, okay, it was this, and this. They just say it was climate change. Even that is a national security issue, because other countries can look at us and be like, dude, they just say, they don't even investigate. They just say climate change. So any of our enemies in the world, they could look at that and be like, that sort of arson, they don't care about. They're, liberal governments don't even want to look into it. So I feel like that makes us very vulnerable when a fire can start and they don't care if there's 50 million dead trees. They don't care if they didn't log properly. They don't care if it was their environmental policies. They don't care if they didn't do control burns like Alaska does. They don't care if they have too many homeless crackheads running around. Why is there more poop on the street? Why is there more needles on the street? Because there's more homeless and drug addicts on the street. So the more people you have that just roam around like zombies, the more crap you're going to have. Of course, there's going to be more arson. Why wouldn't there be? You know what I'm saying? It's a basic math equation. So, these are things that they never think about. I think they call you like a climate change denier or something. I'm not really sure what they're going with, but they got a word for everything. Let's see. I'm going to read a few comments that I'm going to roll out. Thank you guys. Appreciate you for being here. And it's been a wild week, but overall, I'm very grateful to have gotten an interview. I'm very, I'm happy with how it turned out. I think it was like a good presentation for what it was. And just keep moving forward. It's a crazy, crazy world. And it is what it is. Let's see. Long story short, someone said I never should have gone ziplining. I don't know what you mean by that, but zip lining's fun when done properly. Someone said, whatever you low effort clout goblin. I'm the opposite of a clout goblin. I mean, I try to do good reporting, but I'm not like out here begging for people's attention. So why even watch the channel? I don't even care. I'm so not a clout goblin. I literally, like, if people never watched, never wrote about me, that would be not everybody. I would like some sort of audience so I could do my job, but like, I'm not begging for people's attention. I actually would prefer if I flew under the radar so they don't hate me, because anytime you do something good or you're not controllable, they hate you. And I'm starting to see even more how the media complex works. I mean, I already knew it, but it's like, it's a real pressure game. It's like, they'll say with the vaccine, they'll be like, oh, we never forced you to get the vaccine. Well, yeah, technically you never stuck it in their arm, but you took away their job. You took away their family. You took away their access to hospital. You took away the kids' sports. You took away their scholarship. You took away, a lot of people's income and veterans, like retirements, and you threatened military members and police officers. So yeah, technically you never told people, you never forced people to get the vaccine, but you just did everything in the world to pressure them to get it, or you ruined their life. This is what the media does to a lot of people. And to be quite honest, this is why most people don't want to speak the truth publicly. Because if you speak the truth publicly, they do everything like that. Like, they don't necessarily do the main thing to you, but they will do this, do that, try to like set the record straight. Like, if anybody does what he does, if anybody says what he says, we're just going to try to get rid of your sponsors, make you look crazy, slander you and defame you in the press and do all this stuff. And it's like, that's why a lot of people are like, I don't know if it's worth all that. I don't know if I want to, but for me, there's nothing I personally really could have done with what I wanted to do in life and my goals in my 20s. There's nothing I could have done. I couldn't have avoided this because I wanted to do hip hop music, and I wanted to, it was one of those things where I just couldn't have ever sold out like that. Like, it's not an option. I couldn't have just sat there and shut up and been like, hey, rap about women and drugs. Nah, I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, just do this. Just put a he, him next to your name. I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? I don't have that. Like, I can't. I've got fired so many times from certain things where they're like, do this. And if I don't want to do it, it's like, I'd rather lose the money than do it. So, in this world, you're really running out of options. Like, if you're trying to just like chill out and be like, nah, I don't want to do any of that, they're forcing you. If you're in most states, the school systems are so deranged. You just almost have to like homeschool your kids at this point. You can't let them watch television like you used to, because they'll try to like change their gender if you don't watch Peppa Pig with your kid. It's like, it's a crazy world. It's a crazy, crazy world, and everybody's dealing with it. And it's profoundly bizarre. Let me see. Someone said 15-minute cities are coming. Maybe. I heard that was a conspiracy theory. Someone said there's so many trolls, Anomaly must be doing something right. I always have trolls, though. It's just like everybody has an opinion. I don't actually care. I think it's whatever. I could climb down a sewer and not avoid attention. It's true. Someone said good versus evil. Someone said my kid watches 90s shows. That's probably good. Melissa said, I wish more people had the moral compass you had. Thank you, Melissa. I try. No such thing as conspiracy. Well, there is a conspiracy. It's two or more men committing an act of, I guess, like malevolence or something. And then like a theory is a theory about it. But, usually it's not like like every conspiracy theory is not right, but usually there is one that makes more sense than the mainstream narrative. It's just, you got to like figure it out. It's like with every fire, they have like 1,000 narratives and you're like, which one is it? It's like, I'm not sure, but it's probably not what the media is saying for sure. Let's see. They did a 15-minute city trial in Oxford. I mean, convenience is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like it comes at a cost, you know? To be convenient is to lose certain power. Like convenience is sitting there all day, but if you work out, then you get an exercise. So they're trying to make things more convenient because people want it because they'll pay for it. So I'm not saying they're not up to something, but you know, they're definitely going to try to make more convenient things. And it's going to be up to people to either do it or don't do it. Anomaly, are you aware that the DHS is taking over elections? Not to the extent that you're suggesting or anything. So if you have an article or something for me to read, sure. Someone said, thank you for making us stop and think. Keep doing you. I love your content even when I disagree. I think you're right on the money here. Thank you, Flip Alexander. At the end of the day, what I'm doing when it comes to Trump, Vivek, all these people, I'm not hating. I'm not trying to be rude. I mean, they ran for politics. They're trying to run the country. I feel like they're under a lot of pressure and scrutiny. And in general, they're never going to get certain things done if people don't care about it. Like when, you know, people care about enough stuff, perception will change. And then politicians have to kind of like assimilate in order to stay in power or at least get you to like them and respect them. So I just, you know, I'm a little tough sometimes, but I don't know. I'm not thrilled with what's happening in the country like everybody. And once we got locked down, I stopped, like, you know, I'm not going to say I was nicer before, but like, I didn't think that would ever happen. And when it happened, it was like, damn, you know, like, I don't, you know, am I supposed to be nice to somebody that locks me in my house? Am I supposed to be nice to somebody that prints trillions of dollars and tells 100,000 small businesses that they shouldn't exist? Am I supposed to be nice to like 98% of the Republican Party who flopped like a damn fish and implemented like socialist communist policies that they told us for 3 years they didn't agree with shamelessly? You know, it's like everybody makes mistakes, but at a certain point, it's like that kind of woke me up to the fact where I was like, I never thought that would happen. You know, I heard every conspiracy theory. I knew anything was a possibility, but when they locked us down like that, it was like, dude, every conspiracy theory that said that they would do that, like, you know, so who exactly did that? I would say the government in conjunction with the pharmaceutical industry, the press, you know, I mean, and a lot of people complied. I think most of the battle was psychological. You know, I really believe that it was a perception battle. They won for a year to 2 years. They won the perception battle. I don't even think it was like physical or even like economic at a certain point. If they can control the perception of everybody to the point where enough people agree with it or allow it, then that's when it happens. So I think that they psychologically ran a fantastic campaign, and I don't know if they meant to do it or not. I mean, that's debatable. Some people think yes, some people think no, some people say it's a mistake. I mean, I have my opinions, but they were able to, China virus, people dropping down, Trump secret plan, left, I'm scared, mask, blah. They were able to, for at least 15 days, change the perception of most people to the point where they're like, all right, that makes sense. And then they extended it for 30 more days. And it's like, this is getting kind of weird. And then they printed the money and then they handed out the back. And now we already locked down for a month and a half. It is what it is at that point. Once you lock down for 30 days, you just destroyed millions of businesses. You just created a supply chain issue. You know, they buried us in that hole and then they're running around printing money, trying to get us out of it. Like the damage was done at that point. Once 15 days to slow the spread happened, and officially, once Trump extended 15 days, 30 more days, it's over. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's like, I'm not saying everything's his fault, but like we lost. You know what I'm saying? He lost. It's over. It's over. You know, so they created some sort of perception battle to win for long enough to get that stuff done. And whether it was purposeful or not, whether it was a mistake or intentions or whatever you want to say, that's what happened. So with the future, everything is a perception battle, and Trump versus Biden, you know, it's not necessarily who's better. It's who thinks people are better to the point where who they think is the worst or the best. Like, I just see it that way, where it's like, yeah, Biden sucks, but also a lot of people don't like Trump. So that's all I'm going to say with the next election. It's going to come down to how the country perceives it and what they want in this world, the things that they want, the policies they want, you don't always get what you want, like the Rolling Stones said. But at the same time, if 80%, 70% of the population is so tired of illegal immigration because it's, as Eric Adams says, destroying a city, then Democrats will change their tune, just like Eric Adams did. Because like you can't, they can't function. It's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe they'll win elections, but who wants to be the mayor of a city that nobody even wants to live in? Like, how is that fun? I think a lot of people are going to snap out of it. So we got to be there to really like, you know, open up the floodgates and like shift things in the right direction. Cause I believe within the next 8 years, if the Democrats keep doing this, there's going to be more mayors like Eric Adams who kind of come out and start saying Republican stuff. Cause they're just like swamped with budget problems and policy problems. And real quick before I leave, you know, when DeSantis opened up Florida and South Dakota opened up, but Florida, I think, was the biggest state because it has such a big economy. It was a place people could fly and party at or whatever. When DeSantis did that, regardless of what you think about him, that created now opposition to the Democrats. And if you look at the stats, I believe that New York and California lost like $1 trillion. They lost like near or over $1 trillion because they locked down and DeSantis didn't. So at the end of the day, they can get more government money, federal funding, emergencies. I bet they're doing that purposely. But in general, like they're gonna lose. You know what I'm saying? Their city's going to shit. So I think that Eric Adams does want federal money because his city's going to shit and he doesn't have the money for it. So at the end of the day, there is a little, you know, state battle going on where it's like you can lock down, you could lie to people, but you're going to lose $1 trillion. So unless you have an emergency, you know, and can get federal funding, you're just going to be at a massive deficit and things are just going to keep sliding in the wrong direction and companies are going to move and people are going to move and businesses are going to go to Nashville or businesses are going to go to Florida. And over time, they're going to have to change because they can't sustain what they're doing, whether they act like they can or not. So I know people don't like Democrats, and I'm not saying you have to like the party or the politicians. I'm just saying at a certain point, the perception of society has to change. Democrats have to get more moderate, and they're going to be forced to because their policies don't match reality. And eventually the water is going to bubble up so much that they're going to scream like Eric Adams is screaming. I think this is going to happen more and more and more. And I think it's like a natural progression of their failed ideology. Let me know what you think. God bless you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Dream Rare Podcast. I appreciate everybody that watches, shares, considers, and that's all I really ask for. Thank you guys. God bless you. I'll be back soon with more videos. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. So I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/dreamrarechat or @dreamrarechat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. DreamRareChat at Telegram. My Instagram is @DreamRare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And DreamRareLinks.com. That's DreamRareLinks.com. Has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at DreamRareLinks.com. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless you. You already know I'll be back with more content.